about some not violent offenders, but offenders nonetheless, voter fraud. If you guys recall, it was just a couple weeks ago during the Republican primaries here in the state of Texas. We had reports of ballot switching. Basically, people would go in, they type in their candidate on the ballot, and then when they get to the submit screen, the final screen, they'd see that it got changed to some other candidate. And I personally, even though Rand Paul is no longer in the race, I wouldn't have voted for Rand Paul just to make sure that some other candidate didn't sweep up my vote and say that I helped push them to the top. But now we see Utah voter reveals fraud. I literally had over 50 ballots in my hand. One of the voters described the caucus as a vote with no apparent controls, no credential checks, no ID checks, and ballots being handed around like napkins, with at least 250 ballots passed out to only 120 voters. And it's going back to the old deal of the ID for the voter. If you guys recall, I believe it was Project Veritas. Yeah, it was Project Veritas. Went up to, I guess, Washington State. And not Washington State, excuse me, Washington, D.C., and to secure the ballot for Eric Holder, the then Attorney General of the United States of America, in his district. And he said, hey, I'll be back faster than you can say furious. These are the type of things that can happen with voter fraud. All you have to do is know the general location of the person in their polling place, and then you can just go in there and request their ballot. It's a very big issue, but not everybody seems to think that it is. We've seen reports of dead people voting twice. Just like I said, ballot switching. There are all types of shenanigans going on when you don't have some type of voter ID in place. I think a good way to combat this is to have a public ledger. So basically, you can go back and check and see if your ballot was switched. I know some people don't like that. It's like that old Chappelle joke. People tell you the most intimate details of their life, but you ask them who they vote for. Oh, I can't talk about who I voted for. But personally, it doesn't bother me to say who I voted for, president or sheriff or anybody else. I just want the best people in office. It doesn't bother me one bit. Now let's talk about some things that are going on in the mainstream media. We see that Chris Matthews was told to stop talking by MSNBC during a anti-Wall Street rant.
How a young person coming out of school with a huge school debt is really owed something by society. We should give that young man or woman, both of them, something that they haven't had, some sense of economic independence, and don't make them debtors basically for the first half of their adulthood. And so that's about competing ends. Wealthy people on Wall Street, as he talks about, who make a lot of money, the traders, the speculators, they owe something back to society. And so I think that, just a minute, am I supposed to stop talking?
No.
Okay, somebody just told me to.
No, please don't.
There seems to be a lot of controversy going over at MSNBC. You guys recall that Melissa Harris Perry was having some issues over there. I don't know if she quit or got fired, but that whole situation was going on. And also Cenk from the Young Turks was told by the MSNBC president back when he worked there to tone down his rhetoric because people in Washington said that he was too combative towards those in power. So I guess they have a narrative that they're trying to push out there, and they don't like you rocking the boat one bit. But, you know, what do you really expect? Now, let's talk about when you have nothing left. They have nothing left at MSNBC, but you can have nothing left when it comes to your personal life. And this is a situation that happened right here in the state of Texas. Basically, some homeowners were waiting on insurance and a possible FEMA assistance declaration so they could repair their duplex. But instead, somebody came down and tore down their house. And this is one of those things, just like you see the SWAT team raids going to the wrong places and grandmas getting pepper sprayed and kids having their faces blown off. In a similar way, if you're going to knock down somebody's house, you should probably be very, very sure, GPS, whatever it is you have to do to make sure that you're going to the right place. Like you hear those stories about the guy has a problem with his left leg. He wakes up and his right leg's cut off. You should probably confirm, double, triple check before you knock down the people's house. But now they say there's nothing left. And these are the words of Mrs. Diaz. On Tuesday, a Texas demolition company mistakenly tore down her duplex that Diaz and Cutler, that's the other gentleman, both owned. And he said he pulled up to the residence. And he's like, yeah, my house is gone now. So I'm not exactly sure what the remedy is going to be. But yeah, you really need to take these things very, very seriously, because you think about a person who's already gone through the tragedy. You know, maybe they lost friends and relatives during the natural disaster, property damage. I don't know how extensive it was, but they were at least thinking, well, I can just repair my home and continue to live there. But no longer is that the case. Now I want to talk about something: standing up for your rights. And I always tell people to do this with an extreme amount of caution. You know, when you see videos of me or Biggs, anybody else talking to police, you have to take, there's a lot of things that go into that. One, you have to know what you're talking about. You can't, you know, start citing the laws and be stuttering and stammering. You have to be very confident in your delivery. And also you have to know what you're talking about. You need to know your Bill of Rights. If you don't know your Bill of Rights, carry a pocket constitution. Guys like Eddie Craig, who's been a guest on the show, he has printouts, the things that you can keep in your car if you get pulled over by the police. You just pull it out and you go point by point, go down the script, and he tells you everything that you need to say. With that said, if you do encounter an officer who's trying to violate your rights, you can try to do something similar to this.
So did you get your law degree on Facebook, or where did you actually obtain that?
So do I have to have a law degree to be an informed citizen? And when the law says that you can ride your bikes out here, you have no business coming up and harassing anyone telling them that they shouldn't ride their bikes.
Oh, this is harassment now.
When you tell someone to not ride their bike when they're legally able to ride their bike, yes, that is harassment. Your opinion is irrelevant. The law states you can ride our bike. Now, do you have anything else to say, or are you going to leave us alone?
You have a nice day.
And another thing when you encounter the police, try to be respectful. I understand that when they're harassing you for doing something that they shouldn't be, it's hard to be polite, but at least be respectful to them. Talk to them like they're human beings. They make mistakes too, and a lot of them will admit that. The case in point, you guys may recall a report I did with John Bound a couple years ago that happened right here in Austin. We went out to a bank after it had been robbed, and it's a Larry Jackson story. Basically, Larry Jackson showed up to the bank after it had been robbed by somebody else. They showed up to cash a check. They said he had some fake ID or whatever. I don't know if they ever proved that, but that's what they said. Anyway, Larry Jackson took off down the street. A cop chased him down the street, shot him in the back, and killed him. So I want to do a story about this. And this happened, a couple days before I even got out there. So I thought things had cooled out. I went out there like every other news agency in town and was doing my stand-up, and some cop runs out there. Not the same cop that shot Larry Jackson, but a different guy. He runs up to me. He's like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" I'm like, "Bro, I obviously have a camera and a microphone. I'm wearing a suit. What do you think I'm doing out here?" He's like, "Oh, well, we just run high alert." Basically, even though he had that knee-jerk reaction that day, I've seen that guy several times since then. He's a polite guy. I've had, polite dialogues with him when I go to press conferences and APD and stuff. So understand these guys are people too. Sometimes they are able to admit that they're wrong. They're just in a high-pressure job, and sometimes they don't always make the best decisions. Now, to round out our news tonight, before we go into more special reports, Border Patrol Union Chief says arrest of Afghanis and Pakistanis has skyrocketed this year. And they say back in 2015, they had about 5 people from Afghanistan, 57 from Pakistan, and this year they have 18 from Afghanistan and 79 from Pakistan. So the numbers are jumping. And once again, I'm sure most of these are good people who just want to come and get away from persecution of whatever reason. But at the same time, we have to secure our borders. Stay tuned right after this for more special reports.
Please take a moment to listen to what I'm about to break down very, very carefully, because the information I'm about to lay out in just 2 minutes changed my life and changed the life of many, many people around me. I was a big sports enthusiast, but loved to eat like a pig when I was 10 years old up to about 22 or so. And I ran 6 miles every other day and lifted weights almost every day and had a great physique. Then I got into radio and television 21 years ago and got so busy in my work, I stopped working out. And everything was okay for 4 or 5 years, but then suddenly I started putting on pounds every month. And in the next 10 years, I gained almost 100 pounds. Then about 7 years ago, I began jogging, swimming long distances, and lifting weights again, trying to lose weight, and was only able to lose about 20 of the 98 pounds. I even changed my diet. I even increased the exercise. It didn't work. But as soon as I began to get the nutrients and compounds that I needed, my whole life changed. I've gone from 200 and almost 80 pounds down to about 220 pounds or so. It is incredible. And in just the last 3 years, Super Male Vitality, developed by Dr. Group for InfoWarsLife.com exclusively, and products like the Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine have just done incredible things for my body. I work out less. Even though I'm older, I've lost more weight. My muscles got stronger, my stamina, my libido, and so much more. The truth is, we went out to bring you the very best we could, true game-changing products. Visit InfoWarsLife.com today and secure your Super Male or Female Vitality and X2 True Nascent Iodine today, and hopefully start your journey towards living a more natural, focused, clean life. There's a lot of other excellent nutraceuticals we've developed, and also third-party ones that we sell at InfoWarsLife.com that are excellent. But the 2 game changers that I believe if you order them are most likely to really give you the biggest bang for your buck are Super Male Vitality and Female Vitality, and of course, X2 Nascent Iodine. Take the challenge, visit InfoWarsLife.com today, and secure your nutraceuticals. At the same time, know that you're funding the fight for freedom worldwide. Thank you for your support.
Now let's talk about some not violent offenders, but offenders nonetheless, voter fraud. If you guys recall, it was just a couple weeks ago during the Republican primaries here in the state of Texas. We had reports of ballot switching. Basically, people would go in, they'd type in their candidate on the ballot, and then when they get to the submit screen, the final screen, they'd see that it got changed to some other candidate. And I personally, even though Rand Paul is no longer in the race, I went and voted for Rand Paul just to make sure that some other candidate didn't sweep up my vote and say that I helped push them to the top. But now we see Utah voter reveals fraud. I literally had over 50 ballots in my hand. One of the voters described the caucus as a vote with no apparent controls, no credential checks, no ID checks, and ballots being handed around like napkins, with at least 250 ballots passed out to only 120 voters. And it's going back to the old deal of the ID for the voter. If you guys recall, I believe it was Project Veritas. Yeah, it was Project Veritas. Went up to, I guess, Washington State. And not Washington State, excuse me, Washington, D.C., and to secure the ballot for Eric Holder, the then Attorney General of the United States of America, in his district. And he said, hey, I'll be back faster than you can say furious. These are the type of things that can happen with voter fraud. All you have to do is know the general location of the person in their polling place, and then you can just go in there and request their ballot. It's a very big issue, but not everybody seems to think that it is. We've seen reports of